I knew something was wrong the moment he walked in. The whole restaurant felt quiet, like someone had turned the volume dial down with one slow twist. I was wiping a wine glass when I looked up and saw him standing at the entrance, a tall man in a perfect black suit, sharp enough to cut the silence in half. His presence felt heavy, like a storm ready to break over the room. I didn't know his name yet. All I knew was that everyone stared at him the way people look at danger without fully understanding it. The maitre d' tried to welcome him, but the man barely nodded. He answered in short, clipped English. His voice was deep but strained, like he was trying to control his irritation. 4 men stood behind him, all in matching suits. Their eyes scanned every corner of the restaurant like they expected someone to attack at any moment. I had seen intimidating people before, but nothing like this. I was halfway through serving wine at table 4 when I heard the maitre d' repeat the same sentence for the 3rd time. His hands were shaking now. The tall man's jaw tightened. His patience was running out fast. That was when I felt something shift inside me. A memory, a face, a train station in Tokyo, and the loneliness that comes when you don't understand the language around you. I had lived through that same frustration once. My heart started beating faster, not out of fear, out of recognition. I stepped toward the front desk before I could talk myself out of it. "David," I whispered to my manager, "let me help. I speak Japanese." His eyes widened with relief. He stepped aside so fast it almost made me smile. I bowed slightly, keeping my voice steady as I spoke to the man in Japanese. I explained the specials, the wine, the chef's recommendations, everything the maitre d' had been trying to communicate. His reaction surprised me. His eyes softened first. Then he tilted his head, studying me like I was something he didn't expect to find in a place like this. His men exchanged glances, and for the first time since they'd arrived, their shoulders relaxed just a little. "How unusual to find someone here who speaks our language this well," he said. His Japanese was elegant, precise, almost musical. I felt heat rush into my cheeks, but I held my smile. "I lived in Tokyo for 3 years," I said. "If you'd like, I can take care of your table personally." He nodded once, slow, approving, and just like that, the tension in the room shifted. People were still staring, but now they were staring at both of us. I felt their eyes on my back as I led him and his men to the best table in the house. 2 guys at the bar whispered to each other the moment we passed. One tapped his glass nervously. "That's Hioki Tieda," he murmured. Even from across the room, I caught the name, and a chill ran down my spine. I knew that name. Everybody did. But somehow, instead of fear, I felt something else. Something like curiosity, mixed with a strange pull I didn't understand yet. His guards took their seats with stiff backs, scanning every exit. I set down their menus and introduced the appetizers. My voice stayed steady, but inside I felt an unfamiliar flutter, like my life had just taken a turn I couldn't undo. When I brought the bruschetta, I described the ingredients in Japanese. Hioki listened with that same deep, focused stare. His expression was unreadable until he tasted the first bite. Then he nodded with slow appreciation. "Your Japanese is exceptional," he said. "Few Americans understand our language properly." I told him about my years in Tokyo, the festivals, the temples, the people who treated me like family. He listened with an attentiveness that surprised me. And for a moment, the feared man sitting across from me didn't look like a mafia boss. He looked like someone far from home. "I missed the sound of temple bells in the morning," he admitted. The honesty in his voice made my breath catch. His men looked shocked that he'd said something personal, but he didn't seem to care. As I walked away to grab the next course, something inside me shifted again. Something warm and unsteady. Something dangerous. By dessert, he dismissed his guards to another table. An unheard-of move. We were alone at the table now. The air between us felt charged, like a string pulled tight. When he stood to leave, he placed a gold-embossed business card in my palm. My fingers tingled where they touched his. "If you ever need anything," he said softly, "call me." Then he walked out, leaving the whole restaurant buzzing with whispers. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the start of everything. The danger. The secrets. The nights I would lie awake wondering how a single dinner turned my life upside down. And the feelings I tried so hard not to name. But as I closed my hand around that business card, one thought settled deep inside me. This man wasn't just trouble. He was the beginning of something I wasn't ready for. Something I wouldn't be able to walk away from. I kept his business card tucked inside my apron pocket for 3 days. I told myself it meant nothing. I told myself I would never use it. But every time my fingers brushed against the smooth gold edges, something inside me tightened in a way I wasn't ready to face. The restaurant felt different after that night. More crowded. More watchful. Strange men appeared at the bar, dressed too sharply for the Midwest, ordering nothing but water while pretending to check their phones. Their eyes followed me in a way I couldn't explain. On Thursday, as I was polishing glasses before closing, David pulled me aside. His voice was barely a whisper. "Amelia, Table 7 keeps asking about you, and about the man you served last week." My stomach dipped. "What did they say?" "They want to know why he came here, why he talked to you, and why he left you that card." David looked terrified. "Just be careful, okay? Men like that don't mix with people like us." I nodded, but fear didn't come the way I expected. Instead, something felt inevitable. That night, as I stepped out into the cool air behind the restaurant, I felt it before I saw it. Someone was watching me. A black sedan idled across the street. The engine rumbled low. My pulse kicked up. I turned down the sidewalk, walking faster, but the sound of footsteps followed me. "Miss Bennett," a calm voice called from the shadows. I froze. A tall man stepped into the streetlight. His face was ordinary enough to disappear in any crowd. His expression was polite, almost gentle. My employer would appreciate a word. "Your employer?" My voice cracked. "Mr. Joseph Bianchi." I felt the name like a cold hand closing around my spine. Everyone in the city knew that name. And it wasn't because of charity donations. Before I could refuse, he opened the back door of the black car. There, sitting with perfect posture, was a man with silver hair and eyes that didn't blink enough. "Amelia," he said smoothly, "please, get in." Every instinct screamed to run, but something stronger told me not to. Fear, curiosity, stupidity. I didn't know. Inside the car, Bianchi studied me with the quiet intensity of a man used to being obeyed. "Let's skip the polite introductions," he said. "Your interaction with Mr. Tata has caused complications." "I just served him dinner," I said, keeping my voice steady. "No," he corrected. "You connected with him. That man doesn't connect with anyone unless he wants something." His words made my chest tighten. "Tell me," Bianchi leaned forward, "what exactly did he want from you?" "We talked about Japan, that's all." He watched me carefully, searching for lies. "Tata does not break bread with strangers," Bianchi finally said. "He doesn't share memories or speak of his past. He came here for a reason, and now you are part of it." The car fell silent. My pulse hammered in my ears. "When he contacts you again," Bianchi said softly, "he will tell me, immediately. We all want to avoid unnecessary conflict in this city." The message wasn't a request, it was a warning. When the car finally dropped me off near my apartment, my legs shook so badly I could barely climb the stairs. The gold-embossed card burned like fire in my hand. The next morning, I almost dropped my coffee when I saw him. Hioki Teada, sitting alone at a small table outside a cafe across from my building. No guards, no entourage, just him, waiting. I stopped in my tracks. He stood slowly, his eyes finding mine with a calm intensity that made my breath catch. "I apologize for the surprise," he said in Japanese as I approached, "but I needed to speak to you without observers." He slid a cup of coffee toward me. I didn't touch it. "You were approached last night," he said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes." A shadow passed over his face. "You've been pulled into something you were never meant to see." "Then, tell me what's going on," I demanded. My voice was shaky but firm. "Because I'm tired of being the one left in the dark." He looked at me for a long moment. "You helped me," he said quietly. And now I must protect you." The words made my heartbeat stumble. "Bianchi believes you understand more than you translated," he continued. "He thinks you're aligned with me." "I'm not aligned with anyone," I said. His eyes softened in a way I didn't expect. "That is no longer true." My breath caught. He slid a sleek black phone across the table. "This is for you, only for contacting me. It is secure and untraceable." I stared at the phone, at his hand, at the man sitting across from me, a man feared by entire cities, a man who had spoken to me with more honesty than anyone had in years. "How did I get pulled into this?" I whispered. "Because you saw me," he said simply. "Not the power, not the reputation. Me." For a moment, the world felt very still. My pulse slowed. My fear tangled with something warmer, something dangerous. He leaned in, just slightly, close enough that I could see the faint scar near his temple. "This isn't a world you can step into halfway," he warned. "Once you enter, there is no going back." My throat felt tight. What if I want to help? His breath caught. And for the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Something like wanting. "Then," he said softly, "everything changes." His words hung between us. Electric and Impasse never thought a fine dining restaurant could feel like a battlefield, but the next evening proved me wrong. The private dining room at La Stella was set for a negotiation I never should have been part of. My black dress felt too simple, too soft for the tension in the air. I kept reminding myself to breathe. Hioki stood alone at the head of the room, adjusting his cufflinks with slow, careful movements. He always carried himself like a man who understood power and silence. Tonight, though, I sensed something else beneath that calm surface. Something sharper. Something protective. "Remember," he said, his voice low enough for only me to hear, "you translate exactly what is said. No more, no less." "I understand," I whispered. He looked at me for a long moment. "Good, because tonight decides everything." The heavy door opened, and Joseph Bianchi stepped in with his nephew and a man I recognized as his consigliere. The air shifted instantly. Like the pressure dropped. Bianchi's eyes found me, and his disappointment was obvious. "I see our waitress has chosen her side," he said. I felt Hioki stiffen beside me. I raised my chin and answered calmly, "I haven't chosen any side. I'm here to help both of you communicate." Bianchi's amusement faded. His gaze grew colder. "We'll see." Quote, "Negotiations began, and I translated every word, each insult disguised as politeness, each threat woven into business talk. I could feel the tension building in the room like static. At one point, Hioki leaned close enough that his shoulder brushed mine, and he whispered in Japanese, "Ask him why he met with the Tanaka family." The room went silent as I translated. Bianchi's jaw tightened. A muscle in his cheek twitched. "I meet with whoever I choose," he said. "Your reputation makes insurance necessary." I repeated the words to Hioki. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something heavier. Hurt pride, maybe, or the weight of a family legacy he hadn't chosen. Before I could say more, the restaurant suddenly grew too quiet. I heard footsteps outside the door. Fast, urgent. David appeared in the doorway, panic in his eyes. "We need to clear the dining room, now." Then I heard it. Chairs scraping, glasses breaking, the sound of patrons rushing out. Bianchi's nephew looked at his phone and swore under his breath. Tanaka men just entered the main room, armed. Quote, "My stomach dropped. In seconds, both Hioki's men and Bianchi's men formed a defensive line. Two groups who had been ready to tear each other apart minutes earlier now stood shoulder to shoulder. We were set up, Hioki said quietly. They waited until we were all in the same room. Weapons slid from holsters. The metallic clicks echoed like thunder. We need to move, Bianchi ordered. Kitchen exit. Now. I didn't think. I just acted. I led them through the kitchen, giving directions faster than I ever had in my entire life. When Bianchi's consigliere pressed a small pistol into my hand, my breath caught. I don't. Just in case, he said. You're too valuable to lose tonight. My hand shook as I held it. Hioki noticed but said nothing. He walked beside me like a silent shield. We reached the back alley but stopped cold. Armed men stood at both ends, blocking escape. Then a voice cut through the silence. "Teada," it said in Japanese. "Your father sends his regards." The world seemed to tilt. They weren't here for the territory, they were here for him. Hioki's face shifted. Not fear, not anger. Something deeper. Something that made me understand how heavy his life must feel. Before anyone could fire a shot, an idea burst into my mind. A crazy, reckless idea. I turned to Hioki and whispered, "Tell them who I am." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "Tell them I'm your diplomatic envoy under old Yakuza code." His eyes widened. "That hasn't been used in decades." "Try it," I whispered. "Please." He stepped forward. His voice carried the weight of tradition. "This woman stands under my protection as diplomatic counsel," he declared. "Her presence is recognized by my family, by Bianchi's family, and by honor itself." The Tanaka men froze. Honor still meant something to them. I took a breath and spoke directly to their leader in formal Japanese. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. "I request a peaceful parley under old protocol," I said. "Neutral ground. 3 families, no weapons." A long silence followed. Finally, the Tanaka lieutenant nodded. "Harbor Hotel, 1 hour. 3 representatives each." They withdrew, just like that. As the tension drained from the alley, Bianchi let out a slow breath. Then he looked at me with something like respect. "Where in God's name did you learn that?" "My elderly neighbor in Tokyo," I said quietly. "Her father was a leader back in the day." Hioki turned toward me, and for a moment, all the danger faded. He looked at me like I had just altered fate itself. "You may have saved all of us," he said. "Later, in the council chamber at the Harbor Hotel, I stood between 3 powerful families, translating words that could end or ignite a war. Hours passed as they argued, explained, confessed, and finally found common ground. When it was over, the Tanaka elder looked at Hioki with unexpected gentleness. "Your American diplomat has changed more than your business," he said. "She has changed your future." Months later, the private dining room at La Stella became official neutral ground. And when Hioki walked in alone one afternoon, without guards, without tension, I felt something warm bloom in my chest. "My father would like to meet you," he said softly. "He wants to meet the woman who brought peace to 3 families." His voice held something else this time, something personal, something that made my breath tremble. And for the first time since that night he walked into the restaurant, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I was falling. BLE, to ignore. Everything had already changed. The flight to Tokyo felt unreal. I kept staring out the window at the endless clouds, wondering how my life had changed so quickly. 2 months before, I was a waitress pouring wine and paying off student loans. Now I was flying across the Pacific as a formal envoy between 3 criminal families, an envoy who somehow carried the trust of men who didn't trust anyone. But the truth was simpler than that. I wasn't flying to Japan for business. I was flying because Hioki wanted me there. When we stepped off the plane, his men formed a quiet path through the airport crowd, but he stayed close beside me, not in a possessive way. More like he was aware of every person who passed too near, every sound, every shadow. We stayed in a traditional-style hotel overlooking the city. I had my own room, but Hioki insisted his men guard our floor. When I opened the balcony door, the cool night air carried the hum of Tokyo, so familiar it made my throat tighten. The next morning, everything changed. We entered a large home with sliding wooden doors and gardens so perfectly trimmed they looked unreal. Inside, older men waited in formal attire, each watching me with unreadable eyes. At the center sat Hioki's father, a man with silver hair, a calm face, and the kind of presence that made the room feel smaller. I bowed. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. Hioki's father studied me for a long moment before speaking. "You speak our language," he said. "But more importantly, you understand respect." I translated when needed, but most of the meeting was about intentions. Hioki's new vision, the alliance between families, and the peaceful future they were building. His father listened without interrupting. When he finally stood, everyone else did too. He walked up to me, gently took my hands, and said, "You carried my son safely through a storm he could not weather alone. For that, I thank you." His voice softened even more. "And I thank you for teaching him what trust looks like." My breath caught. Hioki's eyes met mine for a brief second, and something warm passed between us. Quiet, deep, undeniable. After the meeting, we returned to the hotel, and for the first time since I met him, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. "You handled yourself well," he said. "I was terrified," I admitted. He gave a faint smile. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more." "What mattered more for you?" I asked softly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened the balcony door and stepped outside. The city lights reflected in his eyes as he looked at me. "You," he said quietly. "You mattered more." My breath stopped, completely. He reached toward me slowly, like he was giving me time to step away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed my cheek. His touch was careful, almost reverent. "I never expected to meet someone who could look past everything I am," he said. "Someone who would trust me anyway." "I don't trust the rumors," I whispered. "I trust the man who missed temple bells in the morning." His expression softened in a way I'd never seen. He stepped closer, and the space between us dissolved. When he kissed me, it wasn't rushed or desperate. It was gentle at first, as if he was learning a language he had never spoken. Then deeper, stronger, with a certainty that made my knees feel weak. For once, I didn't think about danger or business or families or alliances. I thought about him. Only him. The man who had walked into my restaurant like a storm. The man who had changed every part of my life without trying. The man I was falling in love with. When he finally pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. "You know this life will never be simple," he said. "I don't want simple," I whispered. "I want you." His breath trembled, just slightly, before he pulled me into his arms. The city lights glowed behind us, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Not because Tokyo was safe, not because the world had settled, but because he held me like I was the one thing he wasn't willing to lose. And maybe I was. 2 months later, back in the United States, La Stella's private dining room gleamed with soft, golden lights. It had become the official meeting place for peaceful negotiations, something unthinkable before the night everything fell apart. I arranged the wine glasses when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, steady, familiar. I turned, and Hioki stood there in a charcoal suit, no guards this time, just him. "My father sends his blessings," he said softly, "for my work and for us." My heart fluttered. He walked up to me, took my hand, and lifted it gently. "You changed my world, Amelia," he said. "Let me be part of yours." For the first time, the future didn't scare me, because it was ours, together.